This is Starting Strength Coach Byron Johnston, and in this video I'm going to be taking you through a common error that can occur in the movement of the hips during the press. When we teach the press, we explain that we're going to start the movement with a forwards motion of the hips. This will generate a small bouncing of the barbell, and that is the trigger moment to launch the barbell upwards in the pressing motion. One common error that occurs is that in anticipation of the forwards movement of the hips, the lifter will sometimes preemptively draw the hips backwards first before pushing them forwards. Now, when it comes to performing the press, we do not want this drawing backwards of the hips before we drive them forwards. Let me explain briefly why that will cause you a problem in the press. The angle of the forearm determines the trajectory of where the barbell is going to go. So in our start position, we set that so that the bar can travel upwards and to the lockout position with the wrist over the shoulder. If the hips are preemptively drawn backwards, you'll notice that changes the angle of the forearm. You can now see that if the barbell was to be pressed from this angle, it's going to push the bar out and away from you. Again, at the forearm, when the hips are drawn backwards, you'll notice the forearm becomes more horizontal. And now we've introduced the force of moment between the elbow and where the bar is held in the palm. This means there is a tendency for the bar to want to drift away from the shoulders, thereby compromising the start position for the bar. The other issues with the press are that it is a timing dependent lift. We have to have things set in the right order. You'll go from hips forwards, the bar naturally bounces, and then we launch into the press. Hips, bounce, and press. If you insert another step into that chain of events, you increase the probability of mistiming when you will launch the barbell. And again, as I mentioned with the forearm position, it's more likely at that point that the bar is then going to travel away from you in the direction that you don't want it to go. We should also consider that movement in the opposite direction is a leak of power and effort that could be going into correctly performing the press. Lastly, correct performance of the press is dependent upon you getting tight and generating tension in your legs and in your abdominals. By making the error of drawing the hips backwards first, you will compromise some of that tension you're trying to generate. Now, one thing I'd like to point out is that when I've seen people make this error in the press, in most cases, it is unconscious. They're not even aware that they have preemptively drawn the hips back prior to the forward motion of them. With that in mind, one of the first ways to fix this problem is to just draw the awareness of the lifter to the fact that they're doing that unnecessary movement. In addition to this, I will issue the verbal cue for the lifter to draw the hips forwards only. Hips forwards. If needed after that, I will use a blocking action and a tactile cue, place my hand in the lumbar region of the back, meaning that they can only drive the hips forwards to start the movement. I hope you found this video useful. For more information on strength training or to find a coach, head over to startingstrength.com.